things on and to bring like-minded individuals together, a place where you can learn about this subject, you can share your sighting. There's a number of things you could do, but when you're talking about a subject like this, it's always nice to be able to talk to somebody who is on your same wavelength. So that's the good thing about these conferences. Sure, we could all be out in the woods looking for Bigfoot, but this has an importance, I think, in the research, and a way to share things and to find out, hey, there's other people in my area that are into this. I can't convince my neighbors to go Bigfoot hunting with me, but maybe this guy who lives close by, we get together, we go out and enjoy the great outdoors and look for Bigfoot. So that's the great thing about these conferences, and they're a lot of fun, and really appreciate Russell and Michelle for putting this on. Now, a lot of people, let's see, how many folks are from somewhere beyond Texas, out of state? Buddy over here, these folks came from New Mexico. Anybody else come further than that?
Seattle.
Seattle, man. We went from the land of Bigfoot to the land where people say, Bigfoot in Texas? Are you serious? Like, buddy, let me tell you, sit down for just a second and let me tell you about the number of sightings there are in Texas. And most people would be surprised by the long history and the number of sightings, especially in the eastern portion of Texas, in the piney woods. And some of you are probably aware, I mean, if you're here, you're probably aware that there are sightings in this region, but I gotta say that the Sam Houston National Forest area in some of these counties is some of the highest concentration of Bigfoot sightings. And you can understand that when you're driving down here and you start seeing the woods, you start seeing the big trees, the pines, the thickets. Plenty of places out there a large creature could remain undetected. I think a lot of people underestimate that. If they're not from Texas, in their mind they're like, yeah, I've seen a cowboy movie, I know what ranches are. Do you own any horses? I used to tour around the world. I was a musician. The first thing people wanted to know if I had a ranch or if I had horses. I'm like, well, I do have a cowboy hat. And I've ridden a horse, but not everybody in Texas lives on a ranch. And so people are quite surprised by the massive forestry that takes over the eastern portion. And there's so much forest here that it's second only to Alaska in square miles of forestry. So that tells you how much there is and how much potential there is for an unknown creature to live right here in Texas. And everything's bigger in Texas, of course. Apparently our feet are also bigger. Okay, so I had a really great slide presentation, but I kind of like doing things like this because it's just off the cuff, and we can talk about. This is sort of the pep rally. Let's get fired up because this is the start of the conference, and tomorrow's going to be an excellent day. We have great speakers. I promise you, this is one of the best lineups of speakers that I've seen on the bill. Of course, we got Cliff and Bobo from Finding Bigfoot coming in town. They hadn't been as busy filming, so it's great that, they can come out and do some of these conferences. And, a lot of guys here from Texas, Ken Gerhard, Nick Redfern, Jeff Stewart, we've got the Bigfoot huntress extraordinaire, Shelly Covington-Montana. She lives in Texas, but she probably flew in from the Pacific Northwest for this gig. She's always around. And even we got somebody here who's a longtime researcher from Mississippi, M.K. Davis. I'm Lyle Blackburn, by the way. I'd say you can recognize me by the black hat, but that could be problematic you see my brother over there, Ken, in the black hat. Nobody can tell us apart. Luckily, neither one of us have big egos. We don't care. And after a while, we figured out this is the best thing ever. It's like a marketing dream plan because we're in two places at once at all times. I could be doing a gig somewhere. I'm speaking, I could be speaking in Ohio this weekend, and Ken could be here. Well, they recognize us. You're not sure who they're thinking they're seeing, but they're seeing one of us. This is great. So, we're not often, doing the same conferences, but, we are two different people, and you can see that. This is proof, or it could be an illusion. But anyway, let's see. So, sightings in this area date back many, many years. Like I said, the Sam Houston National Forest has a concentration of sightings. And I mean, some of these date back to, early records. You can find things going back to the 1960s and even further back where you have sightings and stories. And if you come down to these areas, I'm sure you could talk to some of the locals who could tell you their great-grandfather saw things in the woods. Maybe he didn't call them Bigfoot, but by the description thereof, you could tell what these things were. So there's a very, very long history of sightings, and it's something that continues right up until the moment. I literally just got a new sighting report that I talked to the witness about 3 days ago, and that occurred not far from here in the Sam Houston area. And these are the kind of witnesses I like, the kind of people who aren't looking for Bigfoot, that almost disregard it, that don't believe it, think it's impossible. If somebody like that sees something and now their whole way of thinking has changed, that's significant. That says they saw something that they didn't expect. And this guy said they were driving. It was early one morning. The sun was just barely coming up. And for whatever reason, he had this long commute to work, and he riding with a buddy. And they just literally pulled over. It's a wooded area. Got out to take a leak. He probably regretted that shortly thereafter because he said, he just got out of the car, went just a little ways in the woods, and he heard something like a rock or something hit over there. And he kind of looked around and went about his business. He said he started looking over there, and he could see literally very close, like it was maybe 20 yards away, a huge figure. And at first he couldn't tell if it was something non-moving or if it was living. And he said he could see it move. Now he said at this point, he kind of put two and two together, and he started thinking there's a person over there. Kind of got scared and, getting a little nervous. And he said at that point, whatever this thing was kind of moved out and was eyeing him. He said it was huge. You could tell it was over 7 feet tall. And now he could see that it was covered in hair. It was just enough light to see the outline and to see the shape of this thing. He said he really couldn't see the fine details of the face. He could tell, he said he thought it had leathery-like skin. It was dark skin, dark hair. And, at this point, he was scared, really scared. So the thing moves, and he said he just took off running, went back to the truck, jumped in, and told his buddy, "Get out of here, let's go." And they zoomed out of there. So he just, as these things go, he ended up telling somebody who knew who I was, and they sent me an email and hooked me up to talk to this guy. And again, it was somebody who didn't even really think about Bigfoot, never had considered it. And now he's faced with what he saw, and his whole opinion of the matter completely changed. He was a good witness, he had a good description, and I felt certain he saw what he saw. And this occurred in November. So not far back, so there's sightings going on in this area, really up until this day. So if you have some time to get out in the woods, that's probably advisable while you're down here. Now just, let's talk about Bigfoot in general. A lot of times I have a presentation where I'm sticking to or whatever, but this is just sort of things that come across my wavelength constantly. The subject of, people underestimate these creatures. People always like, well, there's so many people with cell phones. How is it nobody's got a good picture? Yes, we have a lot of technology, and that technology may be the turning point in proving these creatures are real, yes. But just the fact that everybody's got a cell phone doesn't automatically turn things in our favor, because you really got to think about these things. If you're walking through the woods and you're in a location where you're having to watch the ground, you're walking, you're moving, you do not have your cell phone out. It's not, pointed. And if you think about most of these encounters, they're very, very brief. They're quick. Seconds. By the time you open your app and turn the camera, whatever it was is gone. You're not posing for pictures. You may be able to get Bobo to pose for a picture at the conference. But Bigfoot in the woods doesn't give you that courtesy. Well, there's that too. Yes, we'll say first, it's hard to get a photo. So there is not a mass amount of photos. It's difficult. You have to be in the right place. If you're driving, a lot of these are road sightings. Unless you got a GoPro camera mounted, filming all the time, you're not pulling out your phone. So the fact that we have cell phones and nobody's getting a good picture is something we have to consider. You got to think about these things. And of course, there are a lot of pictures, and most of these are notoriously blurry, blobby, whatever you want to call them. Those leave more questions than answers, because are they blurry because the subject was not standing still? Are they blurry because the person was nervous and shaking? Are they blurry because somebody's trying to hoax it? It's hard to tell. So you don't have a lot of, great photos. These aren't wildlife photos. So it's harder than you think to take a photo. And this kind of translates also to the game cameras. Well, there's a ton of game cameras out there. How come there's no pictures? Well, there are pictures. And again, the game cameras will get partial blur of something. Things are moving by. This is a big subject. It's not a raccoon that's fully in the camera. You get a hairy creature, but you don't have enough data there, to say, this is absolutely a Bigfoot or it's not. And the other thing is, which I found really interesting, and it kind of could explain why it's very hard to get one of these creatures on a game camera. They did a study a while back, and the study has a really long name. I don't even remember it, but basically they were studying alpha coyotes and their avoidance of these cameras. And in fact, they proved that these alpha coyotes could sense the cameras, whether it was by smell or by hearing it, or for whatever reason, they were absolutely avoiding the cameras. Now, some of the younger coyotes would walk in front and you would get a picture snapped, but you've got to extrapolate from that. If a coyote of dog-like intelligence is aware of these cameras and can consciously avoid it, it's not a leap of imagination to say that something with a little more intelligence and a little more purpose to be reclusive could avoid these as well. So again, the fact that game cameras aren't snapping hundreds of Bigfoot pictures doesn't rule out Bigfoot. So the next time you're at the office and the guy says, Bigfoot, whatever, if they think about it a little bit, you think about the logic, you can say, well, yeah, it's not that easy. It is not that easy. And if you go in the woods, if you've been out in the woods camping, you go in the woods, it's thick. 10 feet away, things can disappear. Animals are stealthy. They have natural camouflage. It's like a built-in ghillie suit, built-in camo. These creatures are hard to see. You're lucky if you see one. Some researchers have gone out for years upon end, maybe caught glimpses. You don't see them every weekend. They're built to the environment. And if you study the coloring of animals, the shadowing, some of the fur colors, they imitate shadows. And they blend into the woods. So this is something, we're at a disadvantage when we're in those locations. We're in their territory. We don't have the advantage, they do. So it keeps the case open. Nobody can come in and say, well, just because there isn't a 100% clear picture, because we only have the Patterson-Gimlin film and a handful of other, doesn't eliminate the possibility that these creatures are out there and they exist. And certainly, if you talk to a witness, and I'm sure some folks here and a lot of people at the conference have had sightings, if you talk to those people and you talk to them in person, you become even more convinced. I've interviewed hundreds of people. And even if I dismiss 95% of those, there's a handful that I put 100% credibility and stock in. They saw what they said they saw. Absolutely. And if somebody who dismisses this, this out of hand were to talk to these type of people, they would definitely come away with a different perspective. So a lot of this is coming together, talking and thinking logically about the subject, keeping an open mind. And that's one thing I like to say, after years of being in this field of Bigfoot, there's a lot of conjecture and a lot of opinions, and there's Facebook. And the thing is we got to keep an open mind. It's a subject we don't know a lot about. I don't claim to know everything. The news might call me an expert on Bigfoot, but I'm just somebody who's spent a lot of time researching. That doesn't make me an expert. It just makes me knowledgeable about it. So we all got to keep an open mind. Everybody's theories are fine. They're good. We share things. We're all here for the same purpose. And that's one thing I've noticed and I've tried to stress with people. It's like, hey man, it's a fun subject. Nobody knows all the answers. I don't care who gets on Facebook and said they do, they don't. It's all just opinions, and one person's opinion is just as valuable as the next guy's. So unless you got a Bigfoot sitting next to you and you can say, hey, I know this for sure, they're all brown. We don't know for sure. So keep it fun. That's the thing. With Bigfoot, hey, it's Bigfoot. Let's keep it fun. Right, Craig? Craig Woolheater, everybody. It's a great thing. It gets kids out in the woods. How many kids here have been out Bigfoot hunting in the woods? Yeah? Big kids. Big kids, it's a great subject. It brings families together. I love the great outdoors. If I can go in the great outdoors and have a chance of seeing a creature that people say doesn't exist, a bonus. I could see a Bigfoot. It's like the ultimate camping excursion and vacation, putting those two things together. So when you're out there, have a good time. And if you go Bigfoot hunting, be careful. This is the woods. Dangerous out there. Think about what you're doing. Take the proper gear. Take water. Never underestimate the dangers that can be out there. Keep that part of the fun. Bring the family into it. If your family doesn't believe in Bigfoot, hey, maybe at least you can convince them to camp. Hey, I was looking at this brochure from the Ouachita Mountains or Sam Houston National Forest. A beautiful looking place. We should go down there and rent this cabin. Yeah. Well, at night you can sneak out and go Bigfoot hunting. So, there's ways to bring the family together. Bigfoot unifies. And it's a fun subject. So always keep it fun. Remember, it's just Bigfoot. It's a great mystery, ongoing, fun subject, brings people together, usually around barbecue. I was just talking to Cliff earlier. I see a correlation between Bigfoot and barbecue. I could write an analysis paper on that, because where there's Bigfoot conferences, people who want to research Bigfoot, there's always barbecue nearby, whether it's being catered Or the guy says, man, there's a good barbecue place down here. If you got time, you got to hit that on Sunday. Which is good. Fried catfish, too, I've noticed that as well. So I don't know if that's a theme. I used to hunt a lot with my father when I was young. We used to hunt in Central Texas a lot. He was a bow hunter. And I always stopped at the fried catfish places. So I always appreciate these rural areas. And when I grew up, I didn't really realize Bigfoot was in Texas. When I was very young, I was in the woods, carefree, woo, you know, it was an armadillo. And I know Bigfoot was out there, and they're like, whoa. Because I saw the Patterson-Gimlin film when I was really young. I saw it on TV. I loved movie monsters and things like that. None of that scared me. Frankenstein, the dude's makeup, I love that. Love monsters. I saw the Patterson-Gimlin on film. I saw Patty, and I'm like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that thing might be walking in the woods? I'm going nowhere. Where was that, Northern California? I'm not going there. Hollywood, maybe. I'm not going. That's scary. That scared me to death. I thought, man, could you imagine seeing something like that close? Fast forward all these years, I've got to know Bob Gimlin. He's a great guy. I heard that story right from his mouth. Thinking, wow, it's amazing and mind-blowing. That Patterson-Gimlin image, and it's become the icon of Bigfoot. It really has. Two cowboys out there, you know, never could have imagined that thing is that famous, you know. People, you say Patterson-Gimlin film, they say, what? You know, the Bigfoot. Oh, yeah, I know that. Everybody knows that. So when I was a kid, you know, I would have been totally blown away. My mind would have been blown to think that there's Bigfoot in Texas. My family's from East Texas. I went to those piney woods plenty of times, carefree. I should have been looking. There was probably a Bigfoot 15 feet away, and I missed seeing it. So keep your eyes open. You never know what you'll see. So, I don't know, aside from a hula hoop or a dance, or I could sing, I'm not sure what else to do for your entertainment. But really, we appreciate everybody coming out to the dinner, and this is just a precursor to the great conference tomorrow. And it starts pretty early, way early. Somebody said we had to be in there at 8 p.m.? 8 a.m.? 8 a.m. Early birds, 8 a.m. Bigfoot don't even go to sleep. Okay. We're going to have a lineup up here. We're going to have the speakers all come up here so you can identify them and seek them out. So I'll call you and come on up. Bobo.
Bobo. Hey, Bobo!
It's always a pleasure to have him in Texas. Cliff Barackman. I see Cliff more than I see some of my own family members. We are family. M.K. Davis. Don't sit down. He's analyzed more Bigfoot footage than any other man on earth. Nick Redfern. Nick's written more books than anybody. I mean, I write a book, and did you write a book on the way up here? You kind of finished the book on the way up here. It's serious. This guy's written over like 30 some odd books. It's amazing. 60 books? It was 45. See? I mean, literally, I think it was like last year I was making jokes about 30 books. He's on 45.
No, it's 40.
Amazing. And Shelly Covington-Montana. Oh, yeah. Come on up. All the way from Florida, Mr. Stacy Brown. Just in time, buddy. Somebody had to do it. I guess my brother right there in the black hat, Ken Gerhard. And not to be forgotten, he goes by Cryptohulk, but I know him as Jeff Stewart. Redfern, Southeast Texas. Guy's caught more rattlesnakes with his bare hand than Superman. Bitten 9 times by venomous snakes. Did you get bitten by a venomous snake on the way up while you were riding the boat? No. Got to put those two things together. Have I forgotten anybody? There was so many people on that poster. Is there a blonde one of those?
The other one was the MC, Bobo, and he's not here, but Dan can fill in for him.
Right. Ann Wall's going to be doing the MC tomorrow. Bono Russell couldn't make it. But I think we have a great lineup anyway. Let's give these guys a go. All right. Yeah. Let's do a mugshot lineup here. Seriously, thanks so much. I'm Lyle Blackburn, and I hope you guys have a great time at the conference.